Welcome to Answer Room. Buckle up for today's deep dive. We're tackling something that's hitting everyone's wallets pretty hard right now.
That's right, inflation.
Inflation, exactly.
Yeah.
And we're not just going to talk about how much prices are going up. I mean, come on. We see it every day at the grocery store.
Yeah,
Gas pumps, you name it.
everywhere.
We're going to dive deep into some practical tips, tricks, strategies. Think of it like your personal inflation survival guide.
Yeah, I like that survival guide because it really is about navigating this tricky landscape and not just surviving, but maybe even thriving a little bit. I think what's interesting about inflation is, yeah, it's a challenge, but it also kind of forces us to be a little bit more mindful about our money choices, which actually in the long run can have some positive effects.
Absolutely. And like you said, it's about thriving. It's not just about, barely getting by. It's about making smart decisions that can actually set you up for a better financial future. All right, so let's jump right into it. So first things first, we got to talk essentials.
Mhm.
Those non-negotiables, housing, utilities, food, the things we can't really live without.
Yeah.
But how do we manage those costs when they seem to just keep creeping up?
Yeah, I mean, that's the big question, right? And a lot of financial experts are saying the same thing. Like, CNBC, for example, they have a great guide on budgeting for rising costs. And they really emphasize that focusing on those core needs, those non-negotiables you talked about.
Makes sense.
Housing, utilities, food, making sure those are covered first and
Right,
foremost.
before you even think about maybe like that streaming subscription that you're,
Yeah.
not really using,
Exactly.
or that gym membership you haven't been to in 6 months.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe those are the things that need to go.
Exactly. It's about prioritizing. And the good news is there are actually tools and resources out there that can make this whole budgeting thing a lot easier.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
I mean, I know a lot of people are using apps like Mint or YNA. You
Mhm.
need a budget, I think is what it stands for.
Yeah.
And those can be total game changers for like tracking your spending and figuring out where your money is actually going. And then you can start making those adjustments.
Yeah, and the thing I like about those apps too is they can help you kind of visualize where your money's going so you can see, oh, wow, I'm spending way more on eating out than I thought I was, you know?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And once you see it, it's like, oh, okay, I can actually make some changes.
Yeah, exactly. It becomes real.
And, in addition to those budgeting apps, there are also some great resources out there for just finding ways to cut back on your monthly bills. Like NerdWallet has a ton of awesome tips on like negotiating with your internet provider,
Mm.
your phone company, even your credit card companies.
Oh, yeah, that negotiation piece is huge. And
Yeah.
a lot of people don't realize that you can actually negotiate those things.
Absolutely. It's all about being proactive. Okay, so let's say we've tackled our essential spending, we've got our budget under control, but what about those unexpected expenses that always seem to pop up at the worst possible time? Like that's where I think having a solid emergency fund comes in.
Absolutely. On Investopedia, they really stress the importance of an emergency fund, especially during times like these when inflation is high. They say it's your safety net, it's that cushion that can really help you weather those unexpected storms.
Totally. I mean, imagine if, your car breaks down or you have a medical bill that you weren't expecting
Right.
and prices for everything are already going up. That could really throw you off track if you don't have some savings to fall back on.
Yeah, it can be really stressful. So having that emergency fund can give you peace of mind, you
Hmm.
know? You know you have something to fall back on if something unexpected happens.
Yeah, it takes that worry away, which is priceless. And the good news is you don't need a ton of money to get started. NerdWallet actually has a great list of high-yield savings accounts that don't require a huge initial deposit.
Oh, that's great.
So you can start small, even if it's just putting aside $10 or $20 a week.
Yeah. And the key is consistency, right?
Absolutely.
And what's great is that a lot of these banks, they allow you to automate your savings. Forbes suggests setting up a recurring transfer from your checking account to your savings account. So, you can just set it and forget it, and that money is automatically going into your savings every month.
I love that. Set it and forget it.
Yeah.
Okay, now let's talk about kind of the elephant in the room here, and that's debt. Specifically, high-interest debt, like credit cards. I mean, it's already tough to manage debt in general, but when inflation is soaring, it's like carrying a boulder uphill.
Yeah, it's like you're constantly running on a treadmill, right?
Hmm.
Bankrate really highlights how high interest debt can just gobble up your income, leaving you with less and less wiggle room to manage those rising costs.
Right, and that's money that you could be using for those essentials that we talked about earlier, or for building your emergency fund.
Exactly. So it's really important to prioritize paying down that high interest debt as quickly as possible.
Absolutely. And there's some strategies that can be really helpful here. Debt consolidation, for example, is a great way to potentially lower your interest rate and simplify your payments.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
And again, NerdWallet, they've got a fantastic guide on how to do that, so we'll link that in the show notes.
Great.
And, don't forget, you can also try negotiating with your creditors directly. Like, you might be surprised you can actually sometimes get them to lower your interest rate or waive some fees if you just ask. And Experian has some great tips on how to have those conversations.
Yeah, it never hurts to ask, right?
Exactly. Okay, so we've talked about managing expenses, building savings, tackling debt. But now let's shift gears and talk about how we can actually make our money work harder for us, even during inflation.
Yeah, I mean, that's the goal, right? Make our money work as hard as we do. And a lot of financial experts are talking about the importance of investing, even during inflation. But the key is to be smart about it. Forbes, for example, they suggest looking for assets that tend to hold their value well in inflationary periods.
So like those inflation-resistant investments.
Exactly. Investments that can act as a hedge against rising prices.
Okay, so what kind of investments are we talking about here?
Well, real estate is often considered an inflation hedge.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But, not everyone has the capital to buy a property. So for those who don't, a more accessible entry point might be REITs, real estate investment trusts.
Yeah, REITs. Those are I always think of them as owning a tiny slice of a bunch of different properties.
Yeah, exactly. And Investopedia has a really great explainer on REITs if you want to learn more. Awesome. Another option that's often mentioned is TIPS, Treasury Inflation Protected Securities. These are bonds that are issued by the U.S. Treasury, and their principal value adjusts with inflation, so they can offer some protection against rising prices.
Okay, so REITs, TIPS, those are two good ones to look into.
Yeah, for sure.
Awesome. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here. We talked about expenses, savings, debt, investments. But I think there's one more really powerful tool in our arsenal, and that's increasing our income.
Yeah, absolutely. U.S. News, they actually highlight how valuable extra income streams can be for counteracting the effects of inflation. It's like, you're not just relying on one source of income, you have multiple streams coming in.
Right, it's all about diversifying your income. And there's so many ways to do that these days.
Yeah.
Like you've got freelancing platforms like Upwork and Fiverr, where you can find all sorts of short-term gigs or even build a whole side hustle.
Yep. And if you're more of an entrepreneurial type, there's always the option of selling products online. Platforms like Shopify make it incredibly easy to set up an online store and start selling.
Right. And if you're thinking, well, I don't have any products to sell, you can always look into drop shipping or print-on-demand services.
Oh, yeah, those are good options.
And then, of course, if you're looking to boost your earning potential in your current career, there are tons of affordable online courses you can take to learn in-demand skills. Like LinkedIn Learning is a great resource for that.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's something that people often overlook. Investing in your own education and skill set can really pay off in the long run.
100%. All right, so there you have it, our inflation survival guide, packed with actionable tips to help you manage your spending, build your savings, tackle debt, invest wisely, and even increase your income.
Yeah, we've covered a lot of ground.
We have.
But the key takeaway here is that you have the power to navigate this. It's about making informed choices and taking control of your finances.
Absolutely. And remember, it's a journey, not a sprint.
Exactly.
Small steps taken consistently can lead to big results over time.
I love that.
And we want to hear from you. What strategies are you using to manage your money during inflation? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And hey, if you found this deep dive helpful, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel for more, and don't forget to share with your friends.
And we'll see you in the next deep dive.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.